Today we had the pleasure of introducing Melany Goodhue, who is a certified financial planner, the founder and CEO of Pulse Wealth Management Inc., a multi-awarded winning entrepreneur and speaker. Through a wreck of a childhood that ended in an arguably worse foster care situation, survival and the basic life needs were her only priorities. There was no room for developing a great money habits. After digging herself out of not knowing how to make her next interest payment, now she runs an elite financial planning firm that helps hundreds of families reach dreams they never thought were possible. Pulse donates a portion of all revenues to paying it forward via the Pulse Smile Fund. Clients not only feel fulfilled that their goals are being accomplished, but they're also giving back and contributing to a great cause. Let's welcome Melany and let's get started.
Hi, Alexandra. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for saying yes to come on to the show. I'm so excited and looking forward to find out what you do and have a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. So, Melany, could you please share with us a little bit about you, yourself, and your background and how you got involved in the field of financial planning?
Yeah, so we've got to go back quite a ways if you're ready for that journey. Way back when, I actually thought I wanted to get into dentistry, believe it or not, because that's quite a difference from financial planning. The reason I thought I wanted to get into dentistry is that I was actually born with a cleft lip and palate. It's a birth defect that affects roughly 1 in every 600 babies. And the end result, you have multiple surgeries and things like that to kind of repair everything. The end result is you end up with some pretty mangled teeth. So lots and lots of dental work has to be done to fix them. But I didn't grow up in the best environment, and unfortunately that opportunity wasn't available for me. And so when I was 14, I moved out, and I moved in with a friend and her family under foster care. And one of the first jobs that I had was buttering toast and serving breakfast to the rich old men at the Flying Club in Smiths Falls. And one day after service, I guess I made quite an impression on this wealthy old man, sweet old man. He pulled my friend's dad aside outside and he said, "Hey, listen, I was chatting with her. She's such a sweet, beautiful young girl, but I can tell she has no self-confidence whatsoever. And I'm assuming, it's because of her teeth. Is there not anything, that can be done about that?" And he said, "Well, yes, of course, but we just can't afford it." And he said, "Well, listen, you know what? I'm old. I've got a lot of money, and I really love to help people. I'd give to charity, but let's be real, you never really know where your money is going. And so I'd much prefer, to help people directly. And I'd really like to help her. So can you take her, get her teeth fixed, whatever the cost is? I don't care. Just send me the bill. I'll take care of it. And the only thing I ask is that, you don't repeat my name to anybody." That man irrevocably changed my life forever, for the better. He gave me the self-confidence that I needed to conquer this crazy world. And I strongly believe that if it wasn't for him, I just wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today. And so I made a vow way back when that one day I was going to pay that forward. And so that's what I want to do. We have a smile fund. Pulse Wealth Management has a smile fund, and a portion of all revenue goes to that. And one day we're going to be able to help an underprivileged child, get the dental work that they need that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get. Now, that's a bit about where things started. After that, I did go to schooling for dental assisting, and I wrote my board exam, and I worked in the field for all of 4 months. That's how long I lasted. I didn't have the stomach for it, and it was not my thing. I could not see myself doing that for an entire career. And so I went back to school, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just took general office admin at Algonquin because I figured, you know what? I can get into any field doing admin. I can kind of see what I like and then go from there. If I want to, further my education and step into a bigger role in a particular field, then I can.
Right.
So that's what I did. And my first job, my first career job was really at random. I went through a hiring agency and I got placed in a financial planning firm. And I worked there as an admin for about 4 years. And then I moved out east and I was in operations management for a multi-firm office. And then I came back and I was hired on as a business manager for another firm. And very quickly, the person I worked under, saw it in me. He said, "You'd be so good at this. You love helping people. You love giving back. This is the most rewarding career. You literally get to change people's lives for the better. And I really think that, you should consider stepping into the financial planner role." And so very quickly, under his guidance, I did that. And he's right. I was completely addicted. And I thought, you know what, this is exactly what I want to do. So I went, I did my licensing, and in a short period of time, it got to a point where I thought, you know what, I want to start doing this on my, on my own, not under somebody. I want to have my own clients. And, that arrangement in that office, the offer I wasn't interested. And so I kind of jumped off a cliff and I decided to go out on my own. And that was about 7 years ago. That first year was really rough, to say the least. Starting a business is very hard, considering it's not just about being good at your job, but all the other things about starting and running a business, right? Marketing and logo and branding and, bookkeeping and, all sorts of things. But here we are 7 years later, and we run an elite financial planning firm, and we get to help, hundreds of families reach their financial goals that, have been sitting in the back burner for so long. And it's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, no, I bet. I totally see it and understand it, because I think a lot of people right now are having financially a really hard time, especially since COVID. I find that the interest rates and everything went up, and it's just really hard. Yeah. So, what inspired you to focus specifically on helping people in their financial goals? Like, what is that thing that really drove you to do that?
Yeah, so there's a really great saying, a goal without a plan is just a wish. I didn't make that up. The author is escaping me at the moment, but it's one of my favorite quotes of all time. A goal without a plan is just a wish. And it's so, so true. And I got to experience this first for myself way back when, working under that previous boss that I spoke of, we had created a financial plan for myself. And it was incredible to see, wow, I had this long list of goals, and these were things that have been sitting on my mental list for quite a while, yet somehow just, I don't know, I could never seem to make it work. But as soon as we put pen to paper, we mapped out those goals in detail and we created a plan, a very specific plan on how to get there. It was incredible to see all the wealth growth in a short period of time. I mean, I remember at a point where, again, underprivileged childhood, survival was number one priority. Budgeting and learning how to deal with money was very low on that totem pole. And so, there were times where, I didn't know how to make my interest payment. And then after creating a plan, I had wiped out all debt. I wanted to get married. I wanted to buy a home. I wanted to then have four properties. For some reason, I had four in my head. I wanted to travel many times a year. I wanted a cottage. And we're about 8 years in, and I've done all of that. And that's the power of financial planning, because before you put pen to paper and map out those goals in specific detail and create a plan on how to get there, I really believe that a goal without a plan is just a wish.
So, in your experience, what are some common financial challenges that some of your clients you work with face, and how do you help them overcome these challenges?
Okay. Well, the most common is analysis paralysis. Even just yesterday, I had another client come to me, a prospective client come to me, and they had $250,000 sitting in cash at the bank. Now, you might go, oh my goodness. I can't tell you how common that is when people come to me. And it's because they have analysis paralysis. There is so many options out there for investing, and they get overwhelmed and they don't know what is it that I should
The
invest in
money
for
just
my
sits in their
particular.
bank. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I help people to get out of that analysis paralysis. Again, mapping out all their goals and then helping them to determine based on those goals and those timeframes and those risk tolerances, all the different buckets that they should be investing in and in what amount so they can reach their goals so that they don't have $250,000 just sitting in the bank making $0.
Yeah, so the
So
money
that's
works
the
for
biggest
them.
one. Exactly. So getting them out of that analysis paralysis, and very common analysis paralysis things are, people saying, do I prepay or invest? Do I prepay or renovate my house? Do I renovate the house or do I upgrade it? Do I buy it and sell it? Do I keep it as a rental and buy my next one? So these are all like, oh my gosh, I have so many options. Help me to determine the pros and cons of each of those options for my particular situation. And then, what is my best option going forward? The other thing that is a big challenge for people that I help overcome is a lot of people are just very anxious about the future, the fear of unknown. So, especially when it comes to retirement. So, the big question that I get is, like, am I on track? Is what I'm doing going to work out for me? Am I going to reach my retirement and live the way that I want to in retirement? And if not, what am I doing wrong, or what can I be doing better? How can I optimize my portfolio? How can I accelerate my wealth growth so I don't have to work near as hard to reach my goal?
So, can you explain the importance of comprehensive planning when it comes to reaching financial goals?
Yeah, I know we kind of touched on a little bit of that already, but basically, in a nutshell, like, a comprehensive plan allows you to feel really confident about your money, accomplish things a lot faster, and make financial decisions that really truly like align with your values. It's incredibly exciting for both myself and the clients. When we get to see, even just a year in, how rapidly their wealth accelerates once we start working together in comparison to when they were just DIYing it. Comprehensive financial planning really means that, we work together to create like an all-encompassing plan, and then we implement it. So we look at everything from short-term goals to mid-term goals to long-term goals. That way, we're not just focusing on the here and now, but we're actually building a financial plan from here to mortality and at every stage of life in between.
So, what are some key factors that individuals should consider when planning for retirement, for example? Because we're having such a hard time with the economy right now. So, like, what would you suggest?
Well, if we're talking about current issues right now, I think we all know that inflation has been a big problem in the last year or so. I mean, at one point it was like upwards of 8%, when really, happy place is 2%. Inflation has come down quite a bit. And that's why the Bank of Canada does all those increases to interest rates. As much as we hate them, it is for the greater purpose of the economy. And so they've done a really great job bringing that inflation down significantly. But last year, as an example, the Financial Planners Association said we should no longer be assuming a 2% inflation rate eating into our purchasing power, but we should be doing 2.1%. 2024 hasn't come out yet, but I suspect, because I know someone very well who works on creating those year by year assumptions, that it's going to go up. So I would say 2.2% is probably where we're going to be. And if you're not planning for that, it doesn't sound like a big difference. 2 to 2.1 or 2.2, it is a huge difference. If you change that in a projection, that's going to make a big impact. And if you're not planning for that, then your money won't go near as far in retirement. That means you won't be living near as comfortably. I'd say the other thing that, people should consider right now in this current environment, annuities and GICs have haven't been a hot topic for a very long time. And that's because,
Yeah.
they're really tied to interest rates,
Yeah.
and interest rates have been ultra low. So previously, why would you get a GIC if it's going to pay you 0.25%? Well,
Right.
rates right now are really good for 4.5 to 5.5%. And so, these are two tools that should be brought back into the financial planning world, and things that people should be considering, because, like an annuity for retirement. Previously, if we'd compared an annuity to a conservative rate of return, an RSP, the RSP would win every time. But now, where rates are, I just did an analysis for someone last week, and actually, if they moved, half of their RSPs into an annuity, set it and forget it, they now no longer have to worry about that portion of their portfolio, no matter what happens in the market. Not only have they given themselves that peace of mind, but when we did that comparison in the projections, they actually are leaving a good chunk higher estate value to their kids. And that's because the annuity payout currently is so high based on those high interest rates.
Very interesting. How do you help clients navigate investment strategies and help them make informed decision?
Yeah, so good question. Nothing is ever a rule of thumb, recommendation, or a best guess for me. My clients really love me because I'm incredibly analytic and detail oriented. So I map everything out to the 10th degree by way of projections, and we run multiple scenarios so that my clients can really see how different decisions would play out based on, conservative assumptions that we make, as well as the pros and cons of each. And this way they can feel really confident in what they're implementing in, that it really is the best option for their particular situation.
Mm. So you sit down and you map everything out for them and explaining all that.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's really easy as an advisor to get wrapped up and use rules of thumb like, oh, okay, if you have a pension, you should be, you're going to maybe be more focused on investing in TFSAs or vice versa. Well, that's a rule of thumb,
Right.
but it's not always applicable to every person in that situation. And that's the importance of running projections, is to really see in black and white, the different scenarios mapped out, and if it is actually more beneficial for them. I have clients, when we do that, that actually it's not the best strategy, and we should be doing some RSP and we should be doing some TFSA, because it depends on a whole bunch of other things that make up their financial
So
picture.
it all depends on what they like to do, I guess, with their money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So are there any specific financial tools or resources that you find particularly helpful, for example, professionals and small business owners?
Yeah, there's a really great tool. It's an income tax refund calculator. If you just Google EY 2023 RSP calculator or 2024, it's really handy. So what you do is you put in your income, and then you put in your RSP contribution that you'd like to make. And it'll tell you, based on that, approximately how much of an income tax refund or a tax savings that you'll generate by doing that. That's an incredibly powerful tool, because one, you're keeping more money in your pocket by investing in your own RSP. And then two, you're getting an automatic return before you even factor in market returns. So for example, one might contribute a lump sum to their RSP. If their tax bracket's 30%, automatically they're getting back that 30%, or they're saving that 30% that they would have had to remit to the government in taxes.
Right.
And that's before they make any market growth. And then when they have that savings or they get that refund, if they reinvest that refund, that is not an additional dollar of their earned income. That's just taking the refund that they received and investing it. Now they've invested that much more, and that contribution will generate a refund, and it just keeps going and going. That's why RSPs are actually one of the greatest wealth building strategies out there if you use them properly. If you don't use the refund, they're still beneficial, but if you really want to get into the rapid wealth acceleration, the greatest strategy. Take your RSP, invest it, get your refund, invest that, get your refund, get that, invest your refund.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't know how to invest in their money. I remember a friend of a friend who he's a bit older, and I remember him worked really, really hard when he was younger. He would go to the bank. He would, for example, let's just say back then, $5,000. He would borrow that $5,000, and they're like, "Well, but how are you going to pay back?" He goes, "I'm putting it into my RSPs." And I promised myself within 3 or 4 months, I can't remember the time frame he said, but he worked 2 jobs to make some money to pay off the bank. But that way he already contributed and put that money into his RSPs. And I think it was fabulous what he has done, because people don't know what to do. People don't know how to do it. So
Yeah, so that's a loan to invest strategy.
mm,
Sometimes it can work really well. You do have to be a little bit careful, and it does depend on interest rates. But yeah,
right,
so if we use that same logic, right? If let's say he borrowed $10,000 from the bank, his interest rate's 5%. If he puts
right,
that in his RSP, he gets 30% back. Well,
right,
he's ahead 24%, right? After he's
right.
paid off that interest.
Yeah,
And again, then he's still got the excess. So he can either take that, put it towards repayment, or take that, reinvest it, and get a further refund. So yeah, it's a great
right.
strategy.
Yeah. I just so this is a bit off topic. I'll cut this out, whatever. But I find that we need to teach children how to invest. I find that kids don't know what to do with finances. Like, I have 3 children, and we already started educating them and letting them know work how to work your money, or you know what I mean? Money needs to work for you, kind of thing. So it's like, how do you create a budget? How do you make sure that every time you go in and you spend that money, well, it's taking away from you? So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great that you're spending the time, helping educate your children. I think it's a big disservice that it's not, there's not an introductory course in, say, high school that's mandatory where, teenagers can start to learn, like, what is a mortgage?
Yeah,
You
that's an
know,
everyday life. You need to know that stuff, right?
yeah. What's a budget? How do you budget?
Right.
How does credit work?
Mhm.
There's just so many basics. Like, I remember in high school, I mean, I literally took one of the courses, the electives. I was able to take, like, hairstyling. And, if I look back, I'm like, wow, if it were a requirement to do an introductory to finance, I think that as a society, we would be a lot further ahead financially than we are now. And it's not it's coming into the school systems, which is great. But I think what you're doing is fabulous, and I think if parents can sit down with their children and just try and teach them anything that they know, even the basics, they're going to set their kids up for a lot more success than otherwise they would have financially.
Absolutely agree. What role does risk management plays in financial planning, and how do you guide your clients in mitigating potential risks?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question, because financial security and risk management are number one. So when it comes to financial planning, there's kind of two main buckets: financial security, risk management, and then building wealth, right? We can't build wealth and just cross our fingers that life won't throw lemons at us. It's a great way to, flush your empire down the drain and tear down your whole financial plan and all the wealth you've, worked so hard to build. So it's really, really important that we, protect against the what ifs, and then we build the wealth. That way, when life inevitably decides to throw us a curveball at various points, we can just sleep at night knowing that, nothing will get in the way of the financial plan and accomplishing their goals. So a great example of this actually is about 4 years ago. I had a lovely client of mine sign on with me, and she was solo at the time and a single mom. And she said, look, I know that financial security risk management is really important. And this is something I want to put a lot of focus into. And so I mean, I do it in every plan anyway, but for her, because she was single at the time, single mom, we really kind of took that to the 10th degree. Rather than a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, we built up 9. And then in terms of insurances, we made sure that she had everything in place because her child is dependent on her. She's dependent on her. There's no backup. And about 3 years in, she wrote me and she said, "Hey, listen, I got laid off. And I just want to share with you how wonderful it is that, a few years ago, this would have absolutely destroyed me, sent me into a frenzy, anxiety attack, everything else." And she said, "I am not worried even a little bit." And that's because of all the planning that we've done and the fact that we already mapped out this what if. I have that budget in front of me. I know exactly, I have this great emergency fund. I know exactly how much I have and how long it'll last. And I'm good. I don't have to, scrimp and save and go pick a job at, a fast food chain because I just need money right now. I can take the time to find a job that I really love. Well, 8 months later, she was diagnosed. She had so many lemons thrown at her at once. 8 months later, she was diagnosed with an advanced stage of breast cancer. And she reached out and she said, "Hey, do I have a thing for that?" I said, "Yeah, you have a thing for that. That's the thing that you had been asking me to, if you still need it every year. And I keep telling you, yes, don't cancel it." And so within a few weeks, she had $58,000 tax-free deposited into her account. And she almost cried when we were on FaceTime and I delivered that good news to her. And she just said, "Wow." She said, "I had no idea. Like, I trusted you and what you'd said, but I didn't realize how many costs there comes with a critical illness that you just don't realize. Even things like, hospital parking. And if you want to take treatment at home versus in the hospital, it's out of pocket. Someone to come in now and do my meals and my cleaning, it adds up. And to know that I just have this really nice big buffer and nothing has changed in my financial plan, I didn't have to tear anything down, is just the best feeling of satisfaction and makes me just so grateful that, we did the hard work and we went through the process.
It's such a relief for anybody because a lot of us live through that stress, not knowing, right? Like I think earlier we talked about like what ifs, right? Those what ifs can happen anytime. So
Exactly.
yeah, it was so important. Well, Melany, if there's anything else you would like to add, you're more than welcome to. Love to hear more about. We can probably spend another hour here chatting about financial planning and everything. So please.
For sure. Yeah. One of the things that you had asked me about before we met was, there's a lot of people out there that know the term financial advisor, financial planner, but they don't really understand, specifically what we do and how we can help and the significant impact that we can have. So you said, do you have any stories you can share, some before and afters or some success stories, for example, of how the comprehensive planning approach has really helped your clients? So I think that's a great way to end off. Last week, I had an annual review with a client, and we were only 1 year into working together. And in just 1 year, she had paid down 20% of her mortgage. So a fifth.
Wow.
She had accelerated her savings by almost $250,000, over almost $250,000. And she had increased her net worth by 20% in 1 year. So that's the power of comprehensive financial planning. When you go from a DIY approach where you're just doing your best guess, versus, following a plan that's been mapped out specifically for you and to rearrange your assets in a way that's going to optimize and accelerate your wealth very quickly for your situation, that's the power. The other, client that I helped recently, she's a pre-retiree. She had come to me knowing that, yes, she had done enough for retirement. She felt good about that. She felt confident in that. But she needed a plan to draw it down properly so she wouldn't, give more to the government than necessary and therefore, most importantly, leave more to her 2 disabled children when she passes. So she wanted to know if there were any investment options that she was missing in her portfolio that she should be taking advantage in order to optimize her wealth. She really wanted to see if we could do anything to just leave more to her kids. So what's really cool is that without investing one more dollar than what was already happening in her current plan, this is how we managed to move her assets into a better portfolio, and it increased her position by having 363,000 less taxes on death projected. And overall, that meant just over $500,000 more legacy left for her kids on death. So $500,000 more money to take care of her disabled children when she passes on. And again, not spending an additional dollar of what she was already doing.
Oh, oh my goodness. Definitely, this is more intriguing, and I think a lot of people should actually be asking these kind of questions, right? Because this is how far we can go when we do things ourselves without knowing. So people like you, I am so grateful for you to give those information to anybody who needs it. So
Thank you.
Melany, thank you so much. What I will do is I will definitely post all the information on the bottom of the podcast. I appreciate everything that you said. All the information are sinking in for me as well, and I think for the viewers. So thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Alexandra. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye for now.